Hi, everybody. Thank you. My name's Leonard Maltin. I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy to see such a great turnout. I'm very flattered that you've come to see me. But I know the truth. You've come to see the great Robert Duvall.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
Have a seat. Be comfortable.
Thank you, sir.
Let me say that again. This is Robert Duvall.
They haven't wiped the drool yet. Yeah, good to be here. Great to be here.
Now, you look terrific. I don't have to snow you. You do. You do look terrific, and you're very fit, and you say you feel good, which is great. How much of that is dancing?
Not so much.
Oh, okay.
A little bit of social dancing is good, and I try to walk every day to keep in shape. I look and find bomb-proof horses to ride. And you do a little bit every day to try to keep in shape, and it's difficult. When I weighed 200 pounds a couple of years, I should be 180, but I'm always trying to get it down. I'm a little bit, about 190 below, but stop eating it, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Don't eat so much.
Don't eat so much. Okay.
Stop eating the good brisket around here.
Yeah. Good genes help too, don't they?
I think so, yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, sir.
How much, your father was a military man.
Yes, sir.
And you served in the U.S. Army, I believe?
Well, as a draftee just for 2 years.
Yeah.
Reluctantly, but I did.
Yeah, well, 2 years is 2 years.
Yeah, it should have been 6 months. It was 2 years too long. I mean, then they reduced it to 6 months after that, and then the draft was no longer. Yeah.
What do you take away? Did you take anything worthwhile away from that experience?
Yeah, well, to play military parts.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Exactly, yeah. My dad actually went to the Naval Academy. They let him in when he was 16 years old, off a farm from Virginia. Yeah, he was 30 years in the military. So, but you know, by being in the military and being around it, I don't want to be a part of it as a profession. But I have a certain respect for it because you have to have the military, and you can't look down on those guys. So in playing them, you know, you observe them and take what you need to play them, which is an important thing when you do play them to try to get it accurate.
Sure. Well, you convinced me. You convinced them.
Right. Yeah. Especially when I played in Apocalypse Now. The special service officers stood a certain way. They had a certain way of addressing people, and so that stayed with me after I got out of the Army. You know. Yeah.
People now talk, and even this festival is acknowledging this sort of new golden age of television. A lot of really good writing, a lot of great actors working in short form and long form TV, miniseries exploring adult themes, adult subjects that movies are a little reluctant to do. We're sitting here with somebody who was in the greatest miniseries of all time, Lonesome Dove, and
maybe my favorite part.
Yeah.
I walked into the dressing room or the kitchen one day of Lonesome Dove. I said, "Boys, we're making the Godfather of Westerns."
Well, that nails it, really.
Yeah, right.
It is.
Yeah, well, I was fortunate enough to be in the two great film things, Godfather 1 and 2, and that, you know, in the last part of the 20th century.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what I'm wondering is, did you see anything of your character, Gus McCrae, in this new character you play in A Night in Old Mexico?
I think Whitliff would agree. I think he's a descendant of those two guys. I've always liked. He started writing the project 35 years ago before Lonesome Dove.
This is William Whitliff who wrote the screenplay, the teleplay for Lonesome Dove.
Of A Night in Old Mexico. And when we finished Lonesome Dove, I was walking along the river here in Austin. I don't know what I was doing here, but I was here. And I said, "Hey, Gus, come up, Whitliff." He said, "We done it now. Let's do A Night in Old Mexico." I said, "It's too soon. It's too soon. I got to play a guy a little older. Give me." So it took 35 years to get it off the ground, really, for him. And 23 days to shoot it is all.
Really, that's all?
Yeah, in Brownsville, Texas, which was great. We were supposed to shoot it in New Mexico, but they don't give us a good rebate here in Texas. Please, somebody change that. But we did. We were allowed to on the budget. The budget was only $3.5–4 million, but we did do it in Brownsville, the most corrupt town in Texas. But it sufficed. It sufficed. The Rio Grande Valley is wonderful. I loved it there. The people is just terrific.
And you work with some talented young actors.
Yes, yes. Oh, yeah. Well, Jeremy, what's his name? Irvine from England, and Ed Johnson, who was the casting guy, worked very hard, and he tracked down Angie Cepeda from Bogota to Madrid with her dog. She came back, and she's wonderful. She'd never been seen before in an American film.
Oh, she was
she's
new
wonderful
to me.
in the movie.
New to me and very good in that part.
Pardon?
She was new to me and very good in that part.
Yeah, she was wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah.
and hopefully this will help launch her in some kind of career here. You know, you never know, but hopefully, she's very great to work, wonderful to work with.
When you're playing somebody who is, I mean, there are all these words, adjectives to describe a character like this fellow. Crusty, cantankerous, curmudgeonly.
That was one side.
Yeah, exactly. But if you go too far, then he's dislikable. You don't want him to be unlikable, I guess is the better word. Is that written into the script, or is that your job to try to strike that balance?
Well, I think both. I think both. I think that the kind of a guy who loses everything is a pretty hermetic, old curmudgeonly guy, and he, the day he loses his little ranch on a foreclosure, he finds out he has a grandson, and he's like lost. So they just head to Mexico, old Mexico, for one night.
Yeah.
And they don't know, it's like they're just striking out. They don't know where they're going or aimlessly. But he finds a new life, love that sends him off into the sunset with a potential promise to be, even though, and he's found a new grandson that he knew he never had. He lost a grandson. I mean, he lost a wife, a son, and he just is, because of his lifestyle, he lived alone in a very hermetic way. But now he's got a new life at the end, and it's something Whitliff wrote. Whitliff actually made the adaptation of Lonesome Dove for television, and this is an original script that he's written. It's funny because years ago they tried to get somebody. Then Dennis Hopper was going to direct it. Then a French guy came along at this festival about 10 years ago. He was passionate about directing it. So I got my friends, Danny Davis from Houston. We went around, had brisket. He brought the wine, and he got in this guy, had a fancy car. And as he sat into the seat, Danny threw a pistol underneath him. He sat on the pistol like, "Danny is a gangster," he said like that. It was, and he disappeared. And then the Spanish guy came along with the expertise, the money, and a wonderful crew, Emilio Aragon, and it was really now or never. As far as we never got it made. We finally got it made after many, many years. And we were supposed to do it in New Mexico, but we did it in Brownsville, which was great.
Now, you're in a position now at a point in your life where you pick and choose what you want to do.
I would like to pick and choose what I want to do.
Yeah.
The pickings will get a little bit scarce.
Right, I understand that. And as they are for any good filmmaker or somebody looking for good stories.
Yes.
What makes you say yes? What convinces you to say yes?
The character.
Yeah.
The character, then the total package, who's directing, but it's still the character. I had the good fortune of working this summer. We had, instead of 23 days, we had 60 days, work with Robert Downey Jr. And his wonderful wife. Just a great guy to work with. It was something that came around the corner, and sometimes the things that come around the corner surprise you and are better for you than the things you're planning. So we finished that. And
what film is that?
Called The Judge. And a very smartly written script. If you asked me to explain it, I couldn't right now. I could explain The Night in Old Mexico, but and I guess Warner Brothers is very high on it, and but I had to be talked into it with my agent because it was a very difficult part to play. But great working with the Downeys, the best. And one of my good friends in it was Billy Bob Thornton. Great, he was great.
And you just made a film with Billy Bob.
Yes.
Just a year
I
ago.
worked with Billy Bob. It's great working with him. And same as on this movie, the higher the budget, the more they milk it. I mean, they drive you crazy with different angles. Billy Bob, I love his theory. Rehearsals for pussies, 2 takes, that's it. So we kind of did that in this film too. We had to shoot the rehearsal, and the lower the budget, you know, you have to compact things, which sometimes can be better.
Does that get the adrenaline flowing, you think?
Yes. I can remember doing a big film, between takes, they'd wait 20 minutes, and it was like, at the end of the day, you forgot that you were there for a certain reason. You know,
Right. Oh, well, that's what people say about acting in big Hollywood movies, is that you're paid to wait around all day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, with the judge, we didn't wait around, but we had Janusz, the great cinematographer, but they did angle this. I mean, you can only use so much.
Yeah.
You have the time to do that. You know?
Yeah. If it has to be done quickly, it gets done quickly.
Yeah, and sometimes it's better, really.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, you know, that impetus.
Well, we're talking about mentioning TV and mentioning Lonesome Dove. I want to go back a little further than that, because really, like so many New York trained actors of your generation, the first real experience you got was in television.
Yes.
First live television, then filmed television. And if people just look at a list of your movie credits, you have a long list of movie credits, but you have an awful long list of TV credits too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, TV, well, you did the FBI, this one, that. And if I don't want to do any more FBI, they always have me in khakis and a shirt. It's all the same. And you try to do so many of those to get into film.
Right.
And you do. But then when you get into film, at a certain point, there's certain things in television. You go back to television. When I played Stalin, when I played Lonesome Dove.
Oh, sure.
When I played Broken Trail with the 5 Chinese girls in the Western. And so television can be great.
Right.
It's all action and cut anyway. You know, the same thing.
Right. But in the early days, did you appreciate the experience you got starting with Naked City and The Defenders, those New York shows?
Definitely, yeah. We tried hard. Some times it was better than others. And I remember, like in Naked City, if you did a good emotional scene the second day, then you could kind of coast in a legitimate way the rest of the week. But it was harder, because when you're young, it's harder to make things as offhand as you can do when you're a little older. Because I think the best part of filmmaking and seeing a performance that you respect is when somebody's offhand, even in the emotional scenes. So they don't punch it in an obvious way, you know. So you try to learn that through the years, really.
Was there a benefit also to working with more experienced actors and observing them? I mean, you did Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock, you did all those shows.
Yeah, exactly, you know. Yeah, you learn. You know.
Do you remember anybody?
Now, there's such good young actors. Now, you learn from them.
Sure.
They learn from you. It's a back and forth thing.
Do you remember any actors you worked with in the early days, whether it was on stage or in television, that you really kept an eye on, that struck you in some way?
Brando.
Ah, well.
Yeah, the man. He was the man.
Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman and Gene Hackman, who, you know, and Gene's retired. He shouldn't. He's so brilliant, Gene Hackman. We would sit in Cromwell's drugstore in New York City. We'd meet once or twice a week, and if we mentioned Brando's name once, we'd mention it 25 times. He was kind of like a mentor to everybody. You know. Brando's stories, everything is funny.
Yeah. Well, he was the ideal, wasn't he? He was like
I
the
think
top,
so.
top
Yeah,
of the mountain.
at his best.
Yeah.
At his best.
Right.
I saw about 3 weeks ago. It's been 50 years since I saw Streetcar Named Desire. And when he came, I said, "My God, is this guy unique? How unique is this guy as an actor?" I mean, and then some sunbeams. You know how the particles slowed up? He grabbed them in the scene. He was so open, you know. And but you know, I think I said to him at one time, you know, you should have played Othello. He said, "Boring." You know? 8 times a week, you know. But, you know, he was. Who's to say who's the best actor that ever lived? But he might have been maybe one of the most unique that ever lived. Sure.
And a real touchstone for everyone of your generation, I think.
Yeah, good and bad.
Yeah.
You know, some people did too much of that, you know, and others, you know. But there were others too. Steve Hill was very good at one time. And he said to Brando, go down the street one time, he said, "I just saw you in Zapata. You got to do a hell of a lot better than that for me." You know, so there's always somebody around the corner that's going to accept you or not accept you.
Yeah. What was the most significant praise you got early in your career? What meant something to you that really lifted you up or inspired you?
I remember Kim Stanley, I heard, said I did something good way back. I remember her. And now it's, you know, I won an Oscar. I feel fortunate to win have it on my mantle. And I do have a letter from Brando over here. I think I like the Brando letter more than the Oscar.
Well, that's about the highest compliment you could
Yeah,
get,
yeah.
especially somebody you admired so much.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. The I'm trying to think. The first movie that anybody took notice of you in is one that people didn't know who you were at the time, and that's To Kill a Mockingbird, where you played Boo Radley. And but of course, everything comes from different directions. That's because you'd already worked with Horton Foote, wasn't it?
Yeah, I did a stage play at the neighborhood playhouse that he came to see with Kim Stanley and was it Robert Mulligan who directed it?
Yeah.
They were there one night, and about a year or two later, when they said, "Who's going to play Boo Radley?" Horton's wife Lillian said, "Well, what about that young actor we saw, Robert Duvall? He might be able to play that part." So that's how it began. Yeah, from Horton Foote, who wrote the adaptation from Harper Lee's book.
And of course, it was already a celebrated book,
Yes.
but here, 51 years later, it's still a cherished movie, and I bet most people in this room have seen it, and if not once, then more than once.
Yes.
And it's taught in classrooms. Yes. I mean, it has endured.
I know.
And you're part of it.
Yes, I'm the Mockingbird, really.
Yeah.
Boo was, when they talk about it. I had one line that they cut, you know.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, where? When they lead me home, when they led me, they cut that at the end. But, I have to say that Horton Foote, the great Texas playwright, and Coppola, the Godfather, at one point in my career, in the beginning, they really were both very important to me in helping me along, you know.
Now, what's interesting is you worked with Coppola before The Godfather. People don't remember so much the Rain People. Yeah.
Yes, with Jimmy Caan, who was great in that, Jimmy, yeah.
Well, how is other than casting you in The Godfather, one of the greatest movies ever made?
I replaced somebody in the Rain People. Had I not replaced them, I might not have got a part in The Godfather, because that's where I got to know Coppola.
Wow.
Yeah, and I keep in touch with Jimmy. He's great. Jimmy's great. Jimmy would tell something on The Godfather, and a joke. Brando loved him, and 3 seconds later, Brando would get it. He'd get it, you know. Took him 3 seconds to get it. Jimmy, and the other guy that I worked with, I forget his name. The two funniest guys I ever worked. He's just a funny guy. Brando loved him, Jimmy. But we've been friends. We still keep in touch. And
that's great.
Spent holidays together.
Now, how Coppola wrote the screenplay and directed the film and the sequel too.
Yes, yes.
What did he bring to you as an actor? What if we just read the screenplay and we say, well, that's a great story, great characters. Yes. But what did he bring to the set and to your energy as an actor while the film was being made?
Coppola.
Yeah.
Well, I think what he brought was, unlike some of the old directors, what he brought was he turned the process around and put it on you to see what you would bring. So it was a very collaborative thing. He didn't say do this, do that. I worked with a director one time that said to an actor, when I say action, tense up, God damn it. Can you imagine saying that to Joe Montana in the Super Bowl? It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
You know, with Coppola, it was the other way around. He would want to see what you, and he'd talk about it. But we played a lot of jokes in The Godfather. We'd moon each other on the set and do this and that. And Coppola said, come on, guys, we got to be serious now. But, you know, he knew that it was, to stay loose, that's good.
Yes.
That's very good, you know.
Yes.
So, but he respected actors, even though it was written. And he's a very complex guy, Coppola, in a legitimate, in a good way.
Yeah.
But he respected the actors, and he cast it so well. Actually, The Godfather is cast better for me than even Lonesome Dove. There were some weaknesses in Lonesome, but it was pretty impeccable, the casting in The Godfather 1 and 2. And he, once again, he would turn around and let it come from, to kind of somewhat approximate a documentary. Yeah.
Wow. That must have been something.
Yeah, it was great working with Coppola. But he was always, Jimmy was always pulling stuff on me. It's always funny. Yeah.
Well, that must make it.
One time, because we'd go home on the weekends, and we loved to sing country music. Sing country, and Jimmy was playing, you know, a guy from, so he came back on Monday, Jimmy talk like this, you know. Francis said, come on, Jimmy, what are you doing? Talk like, he'd have to go talk to the Teamsters, we'll come back to get it just right. Yeah.
It's hard to think of him losing his New York-ness.
Who, Jimmy?
Jimmy, yes.
Never happened. He'll always have some of it,
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
Now, you work for
But
one
he's not bad at playing rural parts. He has most New Yorkers can't do that. Now, Billy Bob Thornton wanted to do the definitive American tragedy, the Hatfields and the McCoys. He said no New York actors would be allowed below the Mason-Dixon line because sometimes a person from England could do a better rural accent than New Yorkers. But Jimmy's okay, but he still has the rhythms of it.
Yeah.
Even though he loves living in Beverly Hills.
And is a great horseman, too. Wow. All right, I'll rephrase it.
No, he rodeoed and rode. When you have hobbies, you try to pursue the hobby as intensely and legitimately as you can as an actor, but it's difficult, you know.
All right, let's call him an enthusiast.
Yeah, no, he was pretty good roping and everything, yeah. But, you know, me living in Virginia, I got to be careful calling yourself a horseman because we have Olympic gold medalists, you know, but different jumping.
Yeah.
My two favorite sports in the world are show jumping and American football. I love to watch Grand Prix jumping. It's, you know, I used to do it on a very small level. I could never do what those guys did. And the women compete equally with the men, which is great. You know? They don't do that in the rodeos.
Now, as opposed to Coppola, I just want to make a little turn here. You work with one of the most famous of the old-time Hollywood tyrant directors, Henry Hathaway.
Oh,
on
that's
True
the
Grit.
guy that said, when I say action, tense up, goddammit. And they took poor, what's her name, and threw her on a horse, poor thing.
Oh, Kim Darby?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was, and I kind of got into it with the director one day. And,
everybody got into it with him.
yeah, I get into it with everybody too. No. But anyway, John Wayne said, I do believe he's got the boys' dander up, you know. It was great. The Duke was great to work with.
Yes, tell us about John Wayne.
I didn't get to know him well. He was terrific, though. I mean, he was an underrated actor. He was very natural. When you see him in The Shooters, he was wonderful.
Oh, yes.
I think he had a true illness that, whether he consciously or unconsciously used it, you know. And he's just a good guy.
Yeah.
And an icon.
Yes. Now, another great director, everyone I talk to who's making movies today, young directors who are coming of age today, they all point to the 1970s as being kind of like a great Renaissance era for American film, and it was.
Well, like the independent filmmakers was in the system then.
Yeah, exactly. They were not called independent then because the studios were back in those movies. And one of the other great people you work with was Robert Altman.
Oh, yeah.
And again, you work with him on one of his less known movies, Countdown,
Right.
before he got to make MASH.
Yeah, me and Jimmy.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Altman was one of those guys that let it come from you. He didn't say, you know. Jimmy always laughed because, you know, we always playing jokes like they had when they set off in the countdown to send the thing off. They were counting down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I said far for fire. And Jimmy started. We always you got to pull jokes, you know, to stay loose. But he was wonderful.
Well, did you have a sense did you have any sense at all that MASH was going to take off the way it did?
I wasn't sure. I didn't know.
It was so off the wall for that moment in time.
I was just worried about my next job. You know?
Yeah.
Back then, I wasn't finding it. But it was fun. It's always fun to work with Altman. We went over to his house, Jimmy and I, when he was just doing television. He'd show all these short films that he was experimenting. He was always an experimental guy, you know. And with Jimmy and I used to go over there, and yeah, very easy to work with, very relaxed.
He liked the feeling of community, didn't he?
Yes.
Among his troupe.
Yes.
Well,
Definitely.
it's another indelible part, though. Major
Burns.
You
know, I went over his house one time. You were always hungry, and by mistake, I ate his son's lunch. And 20 years later, if I see his wife, she never lets me forget it. But no, he was great. He liked to show his own movies a lot, but good guy. Yeah.
Now, when you finally decided you wanted to direct, did you ask anybody for advice or for tips, or did you feel you'd absorbed enough from your own experiences?
Yes, that. Strangely enough, my hero, and we're very different in almost every way, was Kenneth Loach from England. He did the movie Kesh about the little boy with the falcon. That movie, I came out of that movie saying, I know it's not a documentary, I know it's fiction, but boy, he melded the two. And so I tried to, whenever I try to direct, I think of him. There are others too, obviously. Yeah. And to use non-actors to mix with the actors, because once the non-actors stepped across the line, they can put the professional actor on notice if they have talent, because no bad habits. So I try to go from that base of reality. And Kenneth Loach was kind of like a hero, and a lot of people never heard of him.
Well, he's the ultimate naturalist, isn't he? He wants it to feel real.
There are others now, yeah. There are others there, definitely. I think Sxsw in his early days, with De Niro was that way. More in his early days, yeah.
Did you enjoy directing?
Very much so.
Yeah.
They say to direct, it wears you out. But to direct and be in it yourself is impossible. I loved it more than anything.
Really?
Yeah, because they knock on your door as an actor and you wait around, you get tired. But it's like you go. And I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it.
So you found it a stimulus?
Yes. But I'd like to direct more, but it's hard to find. Even to find the right parts as an actor is difficult. To direct and to do both. I've got something in my mind I'm trying to get going, but it's tough. It's tough. But it's easier to raise $100 million than 5.
Yeah.
Quit with a big name that'll go down the drain anyway. What do they care? The studios.
Yeah.
But to get independent money is very difficult.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you got to make this one anyway.
This was my money, but it was a very low budget, but they got it done.
Yeah.
Right here in Texas, and and they were going to do it in New Mexico where they have a better tax system, but they did it here, and the kind of movie you had to do in Texas.
Yeah.
You had to do it in Texas.
Yeah. Did you feel that way when you shot The Apostle also?
Yeah, well, we did that mainly in Louisiana.
Yeah.
But absolutely, yeah. Yeah. That was many, many years in making it come to be, because, it's different. Finally, I had to use my own money. I can't do that. You can't really do that, but I had to,
Yeah.
I got it back plus change, that's all.
Oh, well, good. So, because that's supposed to be...
If I had done it in Hollywood, I would have made money. But I got it back plus change, which is okay.
No, listen, if you break even, that's a big deal.
I know, exactly.
That's supposed to be the first rule of show business. Never put your own money into a movie.
Never.
Right? Yeah. But you did.
I did. And my CPA, who was very conservative with money, said, go ahead and do it. So I did listen to him.
So when you're directing yourself, I've never understood how you do that exactly. Who do you trust as your second pair of eyes? Your cinematographer, your assistant director? Who do you...
Yourself.
Yeah?
Because I think I almost put a mirror up so I could yell at the director anytime I wanted, but I didn't. But, when you work with a good director and you do a couple and you say you want to do another, well, what do you think? Oh, I think so. He said, well, I think it's okay, we can move on. It's that same kind of thing, but you don't necessarily have somebody out there saying that, But there are people around that give you ideas, My wife, who's very smart, is not reluctant, so reluctant. She'll give me some feedback. Yeah, so, but it's a challenge, but I think that in another way it frees you.
How so?
Well, as a director and actor, it frees you. You're in charge of things, so you can try anything without worrying about somebody saying, hey, wait a minute, you can just go with what your impulses dictate at the moment. Yeah.
Tell us a little about the film that won you your Oscar, Tender Mercies.
Oh, nice. Horton Foote wrote it as an original screenplay, but he said he doesn't write for people, but yet he would call my ex-wife an ex, what I would be like. I think in a way he did write it for me, but he didn't say. But it was an original script that he wrote, and it was really it's a nice experience, working in Waxahachie, Texas. Waxahachie. And it was nice. And the girl that played the lead was from Arkansas. So she was in Houston when I was in Houston. So they called me and said, what do you think about her? So I got these crazy guys in the oil business. I brought them in. We all improvised. I made them all actors. And she was, I called back and said, she's fine. She'll be okay. So, you know, and then, and Horton's always on the set, Horton Foote. And he's a lovely man. Because you know, even though he's not directing, you say, Horton, maybe I can try this. Maybe I can say, yeah, go ahead, Bobby, try. You know. So it's, but it was a nice, you know, it was a nice movie. I think many people liked it.
Yeah, of course.
There was those who didn't. There's always those who don't. A certain set of critics in New York who didn't like it. That's okay. But Horton Foote said, and I truly believe this, many New Yorkers do not know what goes on beyond the South Jersey shore. Provincial.
Well, it's true. There's a lot of insular New Yorkers. That you know that famous New Yorker map of the United States. That's, you know, it's New York, and then there's this big sort of blob, and then there's Los Angeles, and that's it's all they recognize. Yeah.
The flyover.
Yeah.
They call it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's so much out there. There's so much out there right here in Texas. I mean.
Yeah. Well, so many of these films we're discussing have that flavor, though. They have a definite flavor and an authenticity, and I think that's what people respond to as well as the characters, is they can tell that it's honest.
Yes,
They can
try
tell.
to do that.
Yeah.
Right. We did the film that we did as a play first in New York, informally, from a short story by Faulkner called Tomorrow. We did it in black and white, and Horton wrote that. We did it as a play first, and many people didn't see it, but years later, Jean Perdue, the French actor, bought it and distributed it in Europe. So it was a nice little film that many, at the time of Godfather 1. It was really nice. And
I happen to know it's coming out again on Blu-ray and DVD tomorrow.
Wow, okay.
So people get another shot at seeing it.
Yeah. It was nice to do that down in eastern Mississippi. We worked on the farm that was Tammy Wynette's grandfather's farm. Nice gentleman, but when he saw the movie, he walked out because he thought that I was living with a woman in the movie. It was happening on his property. He thought something bad was going on, so he walked out. Yeah.
Now, in more recent years, you've played some pretty imposing real-life figures. And I wonder, is it just the challenge of playing someone like Stalin or playing Robert E. Lee that appeals to you?
Ooh, very different. Yeah, well, when I played Robert E. Lee, my father's from Northern Virginia, a military man, and I talked exactly like my father, out in the house with a soft R, which Lee would talk like. So that part of it came easy, and even though it was on, I think it was television, I think. It was an interesting part. Now, Stalin was different because we went to playing a Russian speaking English, but I used a slight accent, and we actually filmed in the Kremlin.
You did?
It was strange, and at one point I was sitting in a thing with a guy, obviously from the old guard, who was very hostile to me, and I'm sitting there waiting for my cue and so forth. So it was pretty interesting and the first day I came out dressed as Stalin, people parted. The Russians, it was like, ooh. And then after they served lunch, and they pile potato on top of potato and meat, because they didn't have much food then, you know. But it was very interesting filming over there, and Nikita Mikhailkov's father worked 8 times as a poet under Stalin, and he accepted the movie and what we did very much so. So it was good. So it's strange, HBO did. It's strange people to work for, let me tell you, HBO. They put out a pamphlet in HBO. The guy that wrote the pamphlet knocked the movie that was with HBO. Made no sense to me. But to get positive feedback from Stalin's poet that was it.
What about the mundane stuff, the accent?
I had a Ukrainian, a Russian landlord in New York that it was 3 years I lived there, and I knew him well. He was a wonderful guy, and I just used a bit of his accent. And some Englishmen said, "What do you use in an accent?" Well, the English use an accent in everything. That English accent suffices for Chekhov. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
Half the Nazis in movies have British accents.
English, yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Come on, guys, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
But it was accepted in Russia, and then I played a part of a Cuban barber with Richard Harris.
That's a lovely film, Wrestling Ernest Hemingway.
Wrestling Ernest Hemingway, and we went to Cuba recently, Jimmy Kahn, and we were doing some research work for a movie. We were there 4 days, and the people down there accepted that. So that was a good, valid exception of what I did, I thought.
Sure, absolutely. That's where you worked with very young Sandra Bullock, actually.
Yes.
Too. Yes, she was just starting.
Yes, and the second person that would have backed her up for the part was Ashley Judd. So,
Really?
Yeah, so she was wonderful in the part, though, Sandra Bullock. She was the only one that didn't cross that line. You know, I was an older guy, she was a younger woman. Not in a performance did she let that line be crossed between female and male. The other girls kind of flirted with it, but she really hit it nicely. Yeah, she was great to work with.
Now, you did, one other imposing figure you played was Adolf Eichmann.
Adolf Eichmann, yeah.
And where did the German accent come?
Yes, I'm pretty good. Some accents come better than I just took it on, and at the end, they took him off. Adolf Eichmann, he was tried and excommunicated in Israel. This Eichmann got my wife Luciana when he came up. I got the better end of the deal than the real guy. So, yeah, but I love working in Argentina. I love working down there, yeah. And Arliss Howard played the other part. He's a wonderful actor. He doesn't do a lot now, but that was an interesting part to do, yeah.
I mean, you know, I wonder, I mean, it's, you seem so, you're one of those actors who seems quintessentially American. And yet you've taken on and succeeded in these challenges.
Yeah, I tried to. I mean, I played in what is the movie I did?
Dr. Watson, of course, yes.
And then I went and played in a Scottish soccer coach in a movie. I worked 10 months on the accent.
Really?
Tough accent.
Yeah.
Yes, you know that, right? You know. And I really worked on it because it's a little German. It's many things. So, you know, the movie didn't go anywhere, but I enjoyed working in a beautiful country, Scotland, beautiful, Glasgow.
So if somebody wanted to persuade you to make a movie tomorrow, and they had an idea, what if you open the script, let's say, and page 1 says, sunrise over Nome, Alaska. Are you going to say, I don't want to go to Nome, Alaska? Or, I mean, is it, you know, what appeals to you? We know it's the good character, for sure. If there's a director you want to work with or an actor you want to work opposite. But how much does, you've traveled the globe making movies, like most actors.
Well, it's part of the globe.
Yeah. I mean, what's the best location you've ever been on?
Ooh. I love Texas. I like working in Argentina a lot too. And, different places. I'd have to think about it, but different places I like working.
What's the worst location you've ever been on?
I'd have to think about it. Probably the worst movie, but I have to think about it. Yeah.
We don't have to go negative. That's fine.
I'll think about it. Wait a minute.
I'm going to open it up to the audience here because I know people have questions they want to ask. We have a microphone right there, another one right there, so everyone can hear. And we'll start with you, sir.
That's nice.
Thank you very much for Apocalypse Now.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a masterpiece. I am curious, it's not my question, but I am curious how many people approach you every day and say, hey, it smells like ellipsis.
Say what?
How many people approach you and read you back your own dialogue?
Oh, that happens.
Now?
That happens. That happens. It's as if they know it and only I know it. One time I was in a club in Dallas. One of these singles got packed. And I always get recognized in Texas a lot. So I'm standing against there like it's really packed. And a guy across the room catches my eye and walks toward me. It's as if he recognized me, and he's the only guy in the place that recognized, but he's not going to give it away. As he gets closer, he walks by and he goes, Terry Bradshaw.
Nice. My question was about Apocalypse Now. The documentary Hearts of Darkness exposed some of what went into making that film. Do you have any stories that were maybe not in that documentary that you can, was it as crazy as it seemed?
It was crazy. I never really saw the documentary, but for instance, we were supposed to get 25 helicopters daily, and we get like 4 or 5 because the rest would go down to Mindanao for the pending revolution with all the radical Muslims down there. And Francis would bust he was worse than any actor with these tantrums. He'd bust the boards and everything. So, it was very unpredictable what was going to happen, but it was great working over there. I remember Jimmy, once going back, a guy named Jimmy Keene, not Jimmy Gunn, Jimmy Keene, a wonderful guy. He said, Mr. Duvall, I'd like to watch you act. So I said, okay. So the last rehearsal, guys, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory. I did Brando. So now we all started doing Brando all over the Philippines. So now when they did the censored version of The Godfather, the first, it's 6 lines is all. Brando won $100,000. So they got Jimmy Keene from Buffalo to do.
He looped Brando's lines?
Yeah, he looped Brando's lines.
Oh my God.
All that started in the Philippines, fooling around.
Very funny.
Yeah.
We'll bounce over here now.
Leonard Maltin, one of the things that you said was present in Robert Duvall's movies was this notion of authenticity. Part of that authenticity is a portrayal of religion in your movies that is often absent from a lot of Hollywood movies, especially positive portrayals of religion, like in Tender Mercies and The Apostle. I guess The Apostle portrayal was a little bit mixed. But even One Night in Old Mexico has interesting arguments with God, and religion is a sort of a recurring motif. Can you say something about religion in your movies and possibly even in your life if you're willing?
Is it a coincidence that there's this strain of faith and religion in so many of your key movies?
It's coincidence. It's in the writing, so forth. I'm not an atheist. I'm not an agnostic. I believe in the supreme being, and I believe you have to understand that hopefully through faith, and maybe that faith can bring you someday to an understanding of what it really is in an absolute sense. But I believe in certain religious things, but it's, in my own life, it's very private. But in the scripts, it's kind of either coincidental or put there for a reason. Yeah.
Yes, over here.
So when you had first starred in THX 1138, George Lucas's first feature film, did you have any sense that this guy was going to just blow up? I mean, what were your impressions of very young George Lucas?
Absolutely. When we did The Rain People, he was doing a documentary on the film.
Oh, that's right.
Which is good as the
that
movie.
Lucas's first real job was doing the behind-the-scenes footage of Coppola's The Rain People.
Yes, he had a camera. He was a little skinny guy with a camera here and a Niagara there, and he was going around. And when he directed THX, it's like he'd been doing it 25 years in the right way. Very sophisticated guy. It was great working with him, how much he knew at a young age. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, afternoon. Thank you for Get Low. Great movie.
Get Low, thank you. This is like the other side of the coin with Get Low, Night in Old Mexico. They could be kind of strange relatives.
You're really great at playing these characters where you could tell, they're from dark places, their character. And I'm just wondering what it's like preparing for a role like that when you have to go really internal, really dark.
Oh, for getting ready for Get Low?
And or any of the characters you played, he said you played some very dark characters.
Yeah, you always have to find contradiction. You always have to find the vulnerability within a guy. That final speech in Get Low, we did one take, both on Sxsw and myself. And I improvised a little bit within the given script to trick yourself, to touch things off, so to speak. Mm-hmm. When I got ready for Get Low, we were in northern Argentina, my wife. I just looked at the Andes, looked at those Andes, looked at them, and just let it work on me, the loneliness of those mountains when I worked on my lines. So the different ways of working on it, and sometimes the script is so good you just follow it. We did Lonesome Dove, the script is so good I just went with it, So each part is different, but you just try to find what's in you legitimately that parallels what the script calls for. It's got to be you, something in you, not something out there. Yeah.
Interesting. Yes, over here.
Yes, you mentioned that with age that you felt that you don't have to punch it as much. I think you used those words, that you were able to come off easier on it. A question is that with age, what do you think you've lost other than physical energy or the idea that you just can't play a younger man's character? What is it you lose as an actor with wisdom and experience?
Exercise my hair. I don't know. I don't know what I lost. I mean, you gain.
You see how vital he is?
Well, no, you gain. I think the older you get, being more offhand. I mean, I always, way back I told Sanford Meisner, way back, I always wanted to think of myself in the potential of always trying to get a little better, trying to learn, I mean, sometimes you lose some energy, so you need naps. My father, military man, said a nap is an equal strain on all parts. So my wife, when she first came to this country, said, "Bobby, let's take some snaps." I said, "No, naps." Snaps. Naps, yeah. But you try to compensate with rest and find a way of relaxation. If you lose something, it's in those areas, of physical tiredness.
But it's important to recognize it and then try to compensate.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Over here.
Actually related to the last question, for actors of your generation and of your age, how difficult is it to find rich, complex parts?
How tough is it to find really rich, complex parts?
It is. It's hard. The last big movie I think I've been in was Apocalypse Now. It was a big movie, but there have been wonderful movies. I've had a great career, and I'm very grateful. But the movie I just did with Robert Downey could be very big, because he's a very big star, this guy. I didn't realize how big that I work with. Terrific guy to work with. Terrific guy. He and his wife, they're wonderful people. And I think this movie, the judge could do pretty well, they think. So they say, well, now, I think it'd be a classic. Once I did a movie, before I sat into the chair, they said, well, they're talking about Oscars. This was before we even rehearsed or anything. So you never know. It's all a lot of hearsay. But when a script comes, sometimes, as I said before, it could come around the corner and surprise you better than what you're planning on. I don't know. I was supposed to go to Europe and play with Terry Gilliam, play Don Quixote, but I don't know if that'll ever happen now. I would like that to be.
Still like to see that.
Yeah. Well,
He's been trying to get that made for years.
He had gone another way. Then we talked, because he had seen me play the Cuban barber, and he thought along that line maybe, and but I don't know if it'll ever happen now. I put it on the side.
Yes.
My husband and I don't always agree on everything, but you're our favorite actor. And most of your movies are our favorite movies, but especially for him, I'm going to ask. And Tender Mercies, we love that. And did you ever want to be a country singer? And how important is music in your life?
No, I like it. My brothers are both professional singers, but I like country music, But if I had done it, you had to practice. But no, I like country music. But once again, Waylon Jennings and those guys accepted what I did, and that was a great feedback, Merle Haggard and all those guys. I knew them a little bit, and great guys. I love country music so much.
Well, we thought you did well enough to be one, so.
You sold her and her husband.
What?
You sold her and her husband as a country singer, so.
Oh, well, I tried, yeah. I made an album that never came out. The guy kept it. And the guy, I won't mention names, but the guy's a big crook. Nobody could ever find him. And when I worked with Billy Bob Thornton in Georgia, he was living on the farm next to where we filmed. This guy, but he's got the album in a vault. He'll never bring it out. He's a crazy guy, but
Well, what might have been? Yes.
Mr. Duvall, thank you for Deep Impact and Falling Down, two of my favorite B movies.
Falling Down.
Falling Down.
And Deep Impact.
Deep Impact?
Deep Impact.
No, I never saw it, but go ahead. I haven't seen that one yet, but I saw Falling Down.
I was just wondering, my favorite thing about you is, I never knew anything about your private life, so whenever you're on screen, I totally believe you. and you seem to be the best at keeping that privacy. Like, was that something you had to work on, and how did you maintain that separation? There's no Twitter photos of you eating a hot dog anywhere.
He's saying that he always believes you in your parts because he has no knowledge of you in your private life.
Good.
And yes, well, there's the short answer. And he wonders how you maintain your privacy.
Just do it. You know, it's you're a professional actor. You go to work and you just, each part that comes up, you try to find what that calls for, and do some research if it's called for, whatever, And when I got ready for Lonesome Dove, I rode horses constantly, jumping them and everything, to get ready, so to be in the saddle, because I didn't even like the way my stuntman rode. I like my seat better than his. So, but it's like just prepare yourself as best you can. But when the time you start, you got to throw that all out the window. Just talk and listen. And listen and talk is just like we're doing now. Because to me, that's the beginning and the end of it. Acting is talking and listening. Very simple, but and then that can lead you. If you do it purely, it can lead you, and don't cheat it. Then it'll lead you to good surprises, emotionally or whatever.
And then don't do silly things off camera, off screen that will get you.
You got to.
I'm talking about. He's talking about not being embarrassed in the press or on the internet or anything like that.
Oh, that. Yeah, no, yeah. But off camera around when you can really have some fun on the set. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
Gosh, Mr. Duvall, if anybody ever told me I was going to get to say this to you, I would have thought they were drunk. But I can't tell you for how long my friends and I, and I'm a woman in my 40s, have employed one of the words that you used in Rambling Rose. And I hope that we've said it right all these years. Because, when you hit menopause, it's especially a word that you can use. Didn't you say to Laura Dern something about her hyperzootics in Rambling Rose? Did you not? There was a scene where you just kind of went off about her hyperzootics.
She's remembering a scene with you and Laura Dern in Rambling Rose about her
hyperzootics. I think he made up a word.
Okay, hyperzunit?
Zootics.
Oh.
Did you just
Isn't that
go
to do
off?
with a certain animal or something?
No.
I think.
Okay, sure. Whatever you call. You just use this word, and my friends and I use it all the time. It came out of your mouth about when we're going off a little bit too much. So thank you so much on behalf of all women over 40 in the entire world.
A big fan.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. It was nice working with Laura Dern. She's terrific working. Yeah, we did that down. Where did we do that? We did that in Georgia, I guess we did that. Yeah.
What a wonderful actress she is.
Pardon?
What a wonderful actress she is.
Yes, very much.
She and her mom both, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what, folks? We're out of time.
Can I tell them one story?
You sure can.
A Texas story. My favorite story for the rest of my life. My wife and I were driving from Austin to the Perini Steak Branch in Buffalo Gap. We've done it twice, and twice she made the wrong turn. Now we're going down the highway towards Waco, the round. I said, you're going the wrong way. She comes from a race car family in northern Argentina. She's going 95 miles an hour on this highway. Nobody's there. All of a sudden, here comes a state trooper. Pulls it over. Ma'am, you know how fast you go? I don't believe this, he said. Lonesome Dove. Follow me. So now we go back to where we should have turned. He gets on a wife, calls his wife. The wife and kids come. These aren't provincial people, believe me. We talk, we take pictures, we're talking about this or that. This. They said, now this is the way you should go. You should have gone, which I knew. And so before we left, I made a joke. I said, now if I cross that double line, you're not going to give me a ticket, are you? And without losing a beat, his wife said, well, if he does, he won't be allowed in my bed tonight.
Let's thank Robert Duvall, everybody.
Thank you.